Welcome to Jets Rewind. I'm Marty Shupak. I'm in Valley Cottage, New York. We're joined by Ray Clifford in Marysville, Ohio. A special guest, Rich Tinley from Drafttek.com. That's DRAFTTTEK.com. Rich, how you doing? I know you're over in Ireland. How are you?
All good, yeah, not too bad. How's everybody? Good to be back on the show. I suppose really exciting with the draft coming up pretty soon. Free agency kind of a bit in the bag there now. We kind of have maybe a bit more ideas about what we might do in the draft, but at the same time, we're probably a little bit more clueless too. So right. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get talking about all of that.
As you mentioned, let's just talk for a moment. With all their free agent picks, who were your two favorites from what they picked?
I to be honest with you, I like both tight ends. Like, I think tight end was a huge need for like many years. It's been a neglected position. I think both guys are probably really underrated. Fans are probably looking at their catches, and that's what the determining factor is. But both those guys can block. Like Conklin from the Vikings, he's one of the best run blocking tight ends in the league, gone by PFF last year. And that's on top of his catches. You know, I think Minnesota, they have a history of pretty decent tight ends down there as well. So they know how to develop one. So I think I'm kind of getting him at the right time. And then CJ as well, coming over from Cincinnati after playing in a Super Bowl. That kind of caliber of player been brought in by the organization is nice to see. So I think both those guys really tick the box. And then obviously then bringing in like a Pro Bowl guard, like, you know, that kind of, I suppose, in a way, hopefully should solidify the O-line. The interior was a little bit weak last year, and I know they're moving Tucker over to left guard, or to right guard, sorry. But I think that's probably the smart move too. Like, you want to keep your Pro Bowl player in the best position to succeed and what he's comfortable with. I think if you Fant there on his left is how it's looking at the minute. And then you've got a right side of Tucker and Becton. I think we're looking like a lot better on the outside on both sides there. You know, center still maybe a little concerned, but overall you kind of have to like the look of what you're going into next year in comparison to last, you know?
Yeah, and of course, Becton is the wild card with all this. Ray, did you have anything you wanted to ask him about the free agents before we move right into the draft?
Were you disappointed in losing out on Tyreek Hill? Personally, I wasn't, but I wonder what your feelings were.
When I seen the contract he was given, the 30 million a year, then no, I was actually quite relieved. I think, you know, like, you get a player like him, I get why fans want him, but we have kind of like a light version of him and Elijah Moore there. Like, I worked it out last year, like Hill paid, I think, got 19 million from Kansas City, and we were paying 1.6 for Elijah Moore, and like the value for money we got in comparison to Hill was crazy, you know. And yeah, I'd seen fans wanting to give Moore away as part of the deal. Like, you know, you've got 3 more years of Moore on a low contract. You know, he's given great bang for his buck there. Like Hill, if you're bringing him in at 30 million, how many stats could you put up elsewhere with that money? Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got more at maybe 2 million. You've got another 28 million to spend, at maybe 14 million on another wide receiver and 14 on a pass rusher who could get you 10 sacks. So yeah, I wasn't too disappointed. I like the attitude of the organization going after a guy like that. Again, it wouldn't fit in with my plan of building a roster by spending huge money on a wide receiver or any player for that matter at the moment. I don't think we're in that position at the minute. I think we are in a position to trade for somebody, given the amount of picks we have. But yeah, a guy with a big, massive contract at that type of position would be a no.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just get into the draft. And most recently, the Dolphins traded Devontae Parker, the wide receiver, to the Patriots yesterday. So there's a little bit of movement. Surprisingly, they traded within the same division. Now, my question to you is, with all these wide receivers, I'm not sure if Ray feels the same way, but I kind of feel that Robert Saleh's defense is predicated more on getting a pass rush than having a cover corner like a Sauce Gardner. Do you think all these receivers change his philosophy at all? Is there any chance that they might draft a Sauce Gardner with one of their first two picks?
Of course, there's a chance. I think in a way, kind of his talent could be wasted if we pick him fourth overall. Like he's in the kind of mold of Revis, like a shutdown man corner, playing really good press coverage. I don't think we're going to be playing that defense. Like the guy we brought over from Seattle, I think he's ranked in the top 10 last year, but he's a predominantly a zone coverage type of guy. And if that's kind of what we're playing, then fine. But if you're bringing in Gardner, you could kind of be wasting his talent then to be putting him in that type of zone. So yeah, like there's always a possibility, but given what we've already done in free agency, I don't think he's necessarily a fit. Like if I was looking at a corner first round that probably fits what we're doing a bit more, is probably somebody like McDuffie off Washington, who you could probably get like maybe in the teens if you were trading back, and that was the type of player you wanted to go for. But yeah, like look, Gardner's going to be a great player in the NFL. I really think he's got the skill set that gives him a really good chance of hitting the ground running early, because not all cornerbacks do that in the NFL. Sometimes it takes a year or two for them to develop, and we've got a lot of young cornerbacks there as well that are developing along nicely. And I don't know whether adding another one to develop and have that kind of pressure of the fourth overall pick would necessarily be a good thing. I think you're getting a great player, but again, I think we could be wasting his skill set by not utilizing what he is really good at, you know?
Right. And what's your feeling on Thibodeau? I think if he's there at 4, they'll take him, but I get the feeling you're not crazy about him. I saw in your last 2 mock drafts that you didn't have the Jets taking him. So I just want to know what your feeling is about Thibodeau.
I suppose, like, for me, I can only go what I see on tape. And if that's the case, then I would certainly take him at 4. What my concerns are those sort of rumors and potential red flags of like lacking effort, just in it for the money. All of those things I can't really kind of get to the bottom of being here, obviously. But if it was based on talent and what he's shown on tape, I think he's a safe enough pick at 4. If his attitude is off, then it doesn't matter where you're going to take him. It's still not going to be a good pick for you. So that's kind of why it's probably I'm erring on the side of caution there as well. Like you think we Quentin Cope was there a couple of years back that didn't really work out. And then we had Golston as well from Ohio State that didn't work out. So I think as well, another guy maybe like Walker coming in there as well, like him after doing so well, like at the combine and things like that. Another guy like is kind of a boom or bust type of guy. Like there's talk about him now being potentially going first overall, which I think is a smokescreen personally. But like he has like sort of shot up boards with his size and the athleticism he's shown at his pro days and things like that. So again, like like honestly, if Hutchinson's gone, I kind of like think the safest pick may be actually Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. Like I think you kind of know what you're going to get with him. With the other guys, there are a few things that are up in the air. You're either relying on Walker to develop what he has shown athletically, but hasn't really shown as a footballer yet, or you're hoping that Thibodeau basically comes to play. And if he doesn't, you're kind of screwed there too. So yeah, like it's a tough call with them all. And from outside, like that's the great thing. The teams have that advantage of knowing all these things that we really don't. But yeah, I obviously have to like take into consideration that those things may be possible, you know?
Right. Okay. Go ahead, Ray. Why don't you ask?
I was going to ask, in your mock, you traded down, but if the Jets don't get a free agent receiver somewhere along the line here, I figured they'd probably take one at 10, but I'm not sure what your mock was. Was it something out of a program, or if you guys made that decision yourself on the trade?
Yeah,
one thing I thought was if they did trade back, that they could use those 2 picks and trade back up to like the middle of the first and maybe still grab a good receiver. But I was just wondering.
Yeah, like I think there is probably some going to be very nice options there in the sort of late teens to maybe 25 for a wide receiver. I think they're probably going to be in demand this year. Like you may see one going like, you know, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we drafted 1/4 overall. That's kind of how crazy some of the talk has been going
I
with
heard
them.
that too. Yeah.
Like again, in the mock that we did, I kind of missed out on all the wide receivers, and if I had the opportunity to trade up for one, I certainly would. Like Garrett Wilson is kind of the top guy on our big board, and he's the top of mine. And I kind of like Williamson from Alabama a bit better in terms of what he's shown on tape, the speed he has. I think he would fit the Jets a bit more. I'm just a little bit concerned because he is injured at the moment and how he will come back from it. But like, there is a really strong group of wide receivers that, you know, you could make a case for picking 3 or 4 of them 10th overall. Burks is another guy like from Arkansas. He's a bit more of a possession guy. He'd probably be more in the late teens, early 20 range. But like, again, if we traded down and ended up with a guy like him, I wouldn't be too disappointed either. And then like, even if, you know, potentially if you were a guy maybe who could fall is Christian Watson could fall maybe to the top of round 2 from North Dakota State. He's a small school guy, but he's shown a lot on tape. He's shown a lot of good things. He high points the ball very well, good after the catch, a lot of athletic ability. And yeah, like I kind of like him as an option if we didn't get one in round 1. Like, yeah, I think the 10th pick, you know, you could be spoiled for choice with wide receivers, but at the same time, you know, trading back, it will definitely be kind of an option in Joe Douglas's mind, because if he could pick up a second round pick for trading back, just like you said, then maybe pick 35 or 38, he's moving back, using that other pick to move back up into the 20s range and getting another first round talent, maybe Lindstrom or something like that, or center, or, you know, like you could be coming out with 3 nice first round players. But yeah, you don't want to be missing out on the wide receivers this year, because there are quite a lot of good ones, but I think they are going to be highly sought after too.
All right. I'm going to ask you 2 questions at once. In your latest mock, with the 35th pick, I see you have the Penn State edge rusher, Arnold Ebiketie. And I want to know how you rank him with the other edges. And I also noticed that pick 69, you have Skye Moore, but I've noticed you had him in your last 2 mocks. Tell me why you like Skye Moore so much. But before you do that, tell me how you rated Ebiketie as an edge.
I suppose Ekpateki would be along now, I would say, a Jabo well with Michigan, kind of in that late first, early second round. Maffey as well from Minnesota. I would kind of rate them as that sort of second tier guys. Like, look, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets kind of double dipped at this position either. Like, if they did go edge 4th overall, if there was somebody representing good value there that, like, as is kind of a cover, doubling down, I think they could look at that there too. You know, there's kind of Drake Jackson as well as another kind of guy in that range. But like, if I was to pick it, it would be probably a Jabo if he did fall there. If, you know, if we didn't draft one, I probably would go, and that's why we didn't. I went with Ebiketie instead, because he's actually fit. A Jabo would be more kind of the second guy I'd pick that you could maybe stash away for a couple of months until he's healthy, and then he could be that sort of fresh guy you could bring in 4th quarter and cause a bit of damage. So yeah, there is that sort of second tier of edge guys that do represent good value there. I would be probably happy with 3 of them, as I said, like the guy from Minnesota, Maffey, as well, I think could be a nice little prospect there too. And then, as I said, yeah, Jabo, because of his injury, like, you're getting first round talent there in round 2, which is not to be sniffed anytime you can get it, you know?
Okay. And Skye Moore, what is it you like about him? Because I see he showed up more than once one of your mock drafts.
Yeah, I suppose, like, given what we had left to pick from, like, he definitely wouldn't be my top choice, but he does a lot of good things after the catch. I think he's a reliable set of hands, and yeah, he kind of just represented nice value there for what we were looking like. Another guy I probably could have looked at that range was the guy from Cincinnati, I think, let me just check.
Yeah, I know who you mean. Yeah, he's right in that second tier too.
Pierce, that's his name. Yeah, Alec Pierce. Yeah, like
Oh,
I
Alex
think
Pierce,
if you
I
were
like
looking
a
more for a
lot.
bigger guy, Pierce would be the guy there. For me, Skye Moore was probably just because I think more we had the two tight ends. I was kind of maybe looking for another sort of niftier guy around the middle there that could maybe potentially do a bit of damage, and he sort of ticked that box for us there.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Ray.
Well, I was going to say I looked over your mock a couple of times. I'll tell you the picks I wasn't necessarily against. I didn't like Wyatt necessarily as a first rounder. I thought he could be a second rounder. Ebiketie, who everything I'm reading says he's going to go like later. And so I thought second round might be a little high. We might be able to grab him later. But the main one I wondered about, I would think you would want a receiver before you would go after another running back. I didn't really like I mean, if we hadn't re-signed Coleman, I really like our running backs from last year for the most part. I think the receiver position is the one to me that I would either, and that's what I was going to ask you is, would you prefer to trade for one like we tried, or would you rather draft one? But if you're drafting one, you got to kind of try and get one fairly early.
Yeah, I think if you probably don't get one by pick 40, like you're not going to have the pick of the bunch. You could be like what you would consider those sort of guys with potential rather than what they've shown a lot of it on tape and things like that. There are a few guys that, as I said, like with the injury concerns and things like that, like Williamson will probably drop down because of his injury, maybe to the late teens. Another guy I haven't really spoke of is Drake London. I wouldn't be a huge fan of the guy. The same as well with Olave from Ohio State. I think, personally, I would see them as kind of second round guys. Maybe even a little bit like I would consider London to be like a sort of a light version of Mike Evans when he came out a couple of years. Like he's got a nice skill set, but there's nothing wow about him. To me, he's kind of like in that range. So if London was available at those picks at round 2, I think he'd be nice value there. But if I was seeing him been drafted 10th overall by us, I might be a bit more concerned, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot better guys than that out there. Like, there are options, but I suppose you are taking a risk. I think if you do have the opportunity to maybe move up from 38 or 35 to maybe the 25, 26 range, you may just sort of get maybe one of the last two sort of good guys. I think Bucks could potentially fall down that far, maybe to 25. And for me, he'd represent really good value at that spot. So, yeah, like you kind of don't want to miss the train with wide receiver this year, but that's like kind of any position, really, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I had Devontae Wyatt as my 14th rated pick. I really liked the guy. On your, I guess, one or two previous mock drafts, you had someone who I'm not crazy about. It was Trayvon Walker, because to me, he seems right now more of a workout warrior than a guy that showed production. Now, I know with all the talent on Georgia, sometimes they could eat up each other's stats too. But I kind of like the Devontae Wyatt. And one of the things I saw is he has a pretty good knack for breaking through the double teams, which I really was impressed with. So I really like him. We wanted to ask you, though, nobody has really been speaking about linebacker. And can you see the Jets drafting a linebacker in one of their top 4 picks?
Well, just to go on like our big board here for Drafttek, we have Brian Asamoah as our top outside linebacker in the 4-3 sense, and he's ranked 84th overall. There's kind of a lot of guys there that you could potentially see as outside linebackers who are kind of edge with us. But yeah, at 4-3 outside linebackers usually fall a hell of a lot in the draft. Linebackers in general that, aren't the sort of like a lot of more teams would be using 3-4 fronts and stuff like that. So those guys usually slip down a bit more. So we have we've Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma. He's our 84th overall player. He's our top linebacker on our big board. We've got Brandon Smith then from Penn State. He's 88 on our big board. And a guy I actually kind of like as well, Darian Beavers from Cincinnati. They had a really good defense last year, and Beavers was really, really good in it. Like, he's maybe an option in round 3 and 4. I think if you were looking at linebacker, maybe to get one of the top guys, you'll draft them in round 3 or potentially round 4. Like, if our big board is to stand up, I think, you know, maybe earmarking the 3rd round pick as maybe grabbing one of those 3 guys to improve. I think that was probably the little bit of disappointment I had actually with free agency. There was a guy I really liked, Kazir White. He signed a 1-year deal with Philadelphia Eagles. He was with the Chargers last year. His brother was drafted by Chicago as a wide receiver out of West Virginia a couple of years ago. He had 120 odd tackles last year, and he signed for, I think, $3.5 million. I think he would have been a lovely, lovely addition to our roster. I think the front 7 kind of, for me, still has that 3-4 feel about it. There hasn't been enough of a new sort of influx of players brought in there that are more 4-3 specialists. So I do expect us to bring a linebacker in that is more in that 4-3 mold. And yeah, I think going back with what you said about sort of adding like Leal or something like that to the D line, for me, that was kind of to give Quinnen Williams that final sort of last shot, to have somebody paired in there with him. Like, another guy maybe who could be an option at 10 would be Jordan Davis from Georgia. Now, he wouldn't be my first choice of a guy, but if you are going to sort of shore up that D line, I think if you added, let's just say, Thibodeau at 4 and Davis at 10 and paired them with Lawson and Quinnen Williams, then you're probably building something there that can get to the quarterback over time. And then, you know, adding a little bit of depth that we've already done with Martin there, the outside linebacker or defensive end from Houston, and maybe a potential other guy in the 4-3, as I said, one of those guys like Beavers that could come in and add a few sacks too. I think that's kind of what the defense to me is crying out for, is more of the 4-3 players added in, and not just trying to fit those 3-4 guys into new holes, you know?
Yeah. Ray's going to ask you a question, but I just want to make a statement, and Ray will like this. It looks like you've been reviewing a lot of Cincinnati's tape the last couple of months. That's what it seems to me.
Yeah, they're the college team now was a big surprise to get as far as he did. Now this year they've got like a few nice prospects. As I said, you've got Pierce, the wide receiver, who, like, you know, like if he fell to round 3, like, and he may do fall to round 3, he would represent really, really good value there. I think just because they're not that sort of usual, like, high profile college team, that you're probably going to get a lot of good value players there coming through, you know?
Okay, Ray, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ray. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, by the way, I'm right outside of Columbus, so I see Ohio State all the time, and Cincinnati's only a couple hours away. So I see those guys a lot. So I'm big on Olave. I wouldn't necessarily take him at 10, but I'm really big on Olave because he has unbelievable hands. He catches everything. But I don't know that we would draft him that high, and I don't know he'd be available if we traded back. I was going to say, though, the guy I really liked in your mock, that if he's available, I wouldn't mind getting if it was later in the first or early second, was the safety out of Michigan that you had listed. I think he would be a steal at that point if we could get a hold of him, because I saw some mocks with us taking the kid out of Notre Dame, who's, you know, by all accounts is going to be a stud, but I don't know that we're going to use an early pick like that on a safety. So if that guy from Michigan's still available and we trade back, or if he's available early second, I'd be all over that pick.
Yeah, I think he kind of is that sort of center field guy, like the guy we brought in free agency from Tampa Bay. Like, he kind of looks like he's going to set the tone at the strong safety position there. Hopefully he's going to really help the run defense there. But yeah, I think if we had, like, because we are playing that sort of potentially the zone in the pass defense, to have that sort of center field guy, Hill looks like the type of guy that can play that role. And also at a push, you could put him in on the slot as well. Like, I think he would be a really nice addition there. I suppose, like, again, maybe that's where I would target. The safety position would be the end of round, or it would be round 2, one of those picks potentially. Another guy I kind of like is the guy from Penn State, Briscoe, 6'1", 210. He's another guy that looks like he could do that role if Hill was gone. Again, maybe the top of round 2 might be a little bit high. You could potentially trade back and you might get him at the end of round 2. But yeah, I think if we did get, like, if we were looking at defensive backs, I think sort of that sort of free safety is kind of the guy we may look to target. Although I am kind of happy we brought Joyner back. I think he started to play very nice when he sort of, the momentum was taken out of him when he got injured. I think there's a lot more for him to come as well. So it was nice to see them bring him back. So maybe we don't have that big of an urgency. But again, yeah, if we get a nice free safety with that quality in Hill, I think, yeah, it'd be tough to pass now.
Well, just to follow up on Ray's question, where does the safety from Georgia Seen, where does he, how do you have him ranked with the other 2 guys?
He's probably more of that hard hitter guy. You know, he's probably more of a strong safety. He wouldn't be as good of a fit for us in terms of what we need. So, look, he's going to be a nice player, I think. You know, in the top of round 2 is probably where he'll go. Maybe the end of round 1. You know, maybe the 25 to 35 range is probably where I see him. Maybe 40 maximum we'll drop down, and somebody will get a good player. I just don't think he's exactly a fit for what we may require, you know.
Gotcha. I'm going to ask a 2-part question, but and by the way, we're going to close this out in about 12 minutes. I want to leave a couple of minutes because they cut us right off. But I want you to think of a couple between 1 and 3 sleepers that nobody's really talking about, that maybe we could get back into the 7th round and pick up a guy. But I wanted to ask you, it doesn't affect the Jets, but it kind of does affect the Jets. How many quarterbacks do you think will be drafted in the top 10, and how many in the 1st round?
I think 1 will probably be certainly drafted in the top 10. Potentially 2 if you get another team panicking and they may look to move up. So that could potentially happen. I think I'd go overall, but in round 1, I think if there's more than 3, I'll be shocked. I think you will probably see 2 guys go, 1 top 10. I then maybe think in the sort of 12 to 20 range, another guy might go, and then, you know, you might have somebody at the 28, 29 range that'll just jump back into round 1 to get somebody to make sure they get, if you know what I mean. Just
could you give me 2 names?
I suppose. Let me have a look here. 1 second.
Take your time. I mean,
I haven't really looked too much at quarterbacks, to be honest with you, because
I know, because we don't need
we obviously don't need one.
Well, pretty much everybody's
I think it's Sam Howell. Is that his name from? He probably looks like one of the better ones from what I've seen when I was scouting some of the wide receivers. Yeah, like it's tough. I suppose we have. I'll just go through our big board. Like our Matt Corral from Ole Miss, he's ranked 16th overall. Pickett from Pittsburgh, 19th overall. But going Mac Willis, Liberty's the top guy there. He's 7th overall. So we've kind of 3 in the top 20. But yeah, a lot of the time Pickett has been falling down. We've got Howell, North Carolina. He's 28, so he's kind of hanging on there. I do kind of feel like Howell may go a little bit higher. I'll go before 1 or 2 of those guys. But I suppose from the Jets' perspective, what you kind of want is you want maybe 2 teams to fall in love with the same guy and eventually move up. And, you know, we get pick 10 and we get a nice little windfall there by trading back maybe 4 or 5 spots. So that could be something to look forward to. I think, you know, given the movement as well in free agency and trades with the wide receiver, with the quarterbacks, like the sort of merry-go-round there was this year, you can see how high a demand quarterbacks are in. And when you have a round 1 pick and, you know, this new CBA, it costs you nothing to sort of like miss on a quarterback now. You're paying maybe $6 million a year while all these other teams are paying 35. Even with a bad one, you can kind of compete if you have a good 52. So Yeah, I think teams are probably going to risk it a bit more for quarterbacks in future, even if they aren't great prospects, because if they hit on one at that sort of cost, it puts them in a great position for success moving
Right.
forward. So I think they're always going to risk it, you know.
I want to ask Ray how many he thinks. I happen to agree. I think there'll be one top 10 and at least one, maybe two more in the top 32. I could see like maybe Detroit taking a chance with their pick. I think they have 2 first-round picks. Ray, how many quarterbacks do you think are going to be taken in the first round?
Well, originally I thought one, and I thought it would be Pickett, but the way Malik Willis has gone up the charts, and some have him taken him. If he goes real early, then I think there will be 2, because I think either Atlanta or who was the other one I was thinking of?
Carolina?
Carolina, possibly. Although there's indications they like Howell, but because he's more local. But I think Pickett will go to one of them. But now that Willis has moved up, if he goes early in one of the top, 3 picks, because the Jets definitely aren't taking him unless we trade it so somebody can take him, like Carolina or somebody just move up a couple of spots and give us a couple extra picks. We could probably still get whoever we want if they're going up to take a quarterback. But yeah, I think, well, I'm sure there'll be one. I'm thinking if Willis goes early, there'll be 2 now.
I agree. And we're going to close this out. I want you to give me a couple of sleepers. But before we do that, because I go on Twitter a lot, Rich and Ray, and you could go crazy, listen to all these rumors. I want to ask you, Rich, your opinion, because they're talking about the Jets trading back. I'm of the opinion, I could be wrong. Would it be better for them to wait up right until draft day to trade back, trade down, rather than do it between now and April 28th? Doesn't the value increase the closer we get to draft day, Rich? That's my question.
Yeah, in theory, the value does increase the closer you get to draft day, because the team that wants that pick is probably going to panic a bit more and maybe concede a little bit more away. So yeah, there is that angle, but at the same time, if you know what I mean, if you know what you have, like let's just say I come up with the scenario of, for me trading 4 and 10 to Philadelphia for 15, 16, 19 and the second round pick, I'd kind of do that in a heartbeat, because you're kind of in that range there where you're getting 3 nice first round players instead of 2. So yeah, it's just about like, if you, for us, I'd kind of rather know going into the draft what our picks were, rather than at the last minute kind of have to shuffle and go, okay, what do we need now? And if it meant the difference between getting a 3rd round pick instead of a 4th round pick, I'd be kind of okay with that. For me, yeah, I'd like to be set up going, right, well, I know we're having this pick, we're after trading back, let's just say pick 10 to somebody, and now we're picking 16. So I'd kind of rather know that, so as that we know who we could look at and who to maybe gauge who's going to be there, and then adjust our draft board accordingly, All
right, quickly, give me 2 sleepers in this year's draft that the Jets might be able to steal late. Okay, just the name, position, and school.
Yeah, I suppose the first guy is Jojo Doman, senior from Nebraska. He plays linebacker, 6'1", 230. He's probably in the 5th kind of round range. And I suppose looking at another Nebraska guy, he's a center, Cameron Jorgens, 6'3", 290. Nebraska O-line, they know how to block, and he could be available at round 5 as well there. I think they're pretty good value picks at positions that, could come in and improve the team, or the areas where need improving anyway.
There you go, Jets Rewind fans. You heard from Rich Tinley. Rich Tinley is with Drafttek.com. That's DRAFTTEK.com. Rich, how would the fans follow you if they wanted to?
Yeah, I had to be on Twitter. I don't be on a huge amount, but on Tinley24, there's also options there. If you go on to the website there, you can email me directly, let me know what you think of our mock drafts. I get a few sort of not so many fans, but like, you know, like we rotate sort of players too. I like to give fans a different experience as in, well, what would happen if we went this route here? What would the knock-on effects be? And, you know, because if you are just picking the same players every mock, it'd be boring. So yeah, I like to try and change it up a little bit as I go too, and then that engages a bit of conversation. But it's always like good fun. I think you know, there's nothing ever certain in the draft. As much as you think a guy's not going to go there, he probably will, or you know, things always happen that you don't expect in the draft. So there's no sure thing. So that's why it's always fun to sort of discuss and have opinions on it.
There you go. I mean, the three people you have to follow Peter King, Adam Schefter, and Rich Tinley. Rich Tinley from Ireland and Ray Clifford from Marysville, Ohio. I'm Marty Shupak, signing off until next time.